All right, so this is the next one for testing. So integration testing. So integration testing is a little bit special because you're only going to be able to test it once it's deployed. And the way that we've set up most of our solutions is you can only access these API endpoints from within the RACQ network. So that's why I'm going to have to show everything via the virtual desktop or virtual environment that's been set up. Okay, so let's see. So here, I've just downloaded a copy of the repository. And in this repository, you should go to the test directory, and in there you can see there's a collection and environments. So the collections file, maybe I can just open it up. So the collection file is a whole bunch of JSON, and it includes test scenarios. So this is, I guess, code that is specific to Postman. And then we've got placeholders for environment variables. So things like API keys, and what else? We should have the URL somewhere. Here. So you've got the URLs here. So you've got one for the check eligibility API, and you've got one for acknowledge, and you've got another one for, I think it's invoiced. Anyway, so that's the collection file, which has all of the test scenarios that you want to run and all of the input payloads that you want to send into your API endpoints and all the expected results. Then you have the environment file. So the environment file is quite simply just a collection of environment variables. So remember in this previous one, I've got this check variable. So that one gets replaced with this string here. And then we should have an acknowledge variable somewhere in this collection. Acknowledge, and that is over here. So that gets replaced with that. And then you've got one for the API key also, and which is just here. Okay, so at the moment, you don't have to memorize any of these files or how they're structured, but I'm just showing you what the files look like and what they contain inside each of these files. Okay, so going back, you start off with your repository, go into the test directory, then we're going to need to open up Postman. I think we can just close that for now. So Postman is kind of like having a browser. So you've got Internet Explorer, you've got Chrome and Firefox, where you put in an address, right? And you put those address ins, and you go to those websites, and it gives you a page back. So in the same sort of way, you put in an address in to the address bar, and you've performed a get against that web address, and it's responded back with a HTML file, which your browser can interpret and present your web page. So Postman is kind of like that, but it's more geared towards calling API endpoints. And what's different is you don't just put an address in and then retrieve the data from that API endpoint, but you can also send data into that API, and it can give you a response back based on the inputs that you have provided. Okay? But all of this has already been set up. All the test cases have been set up for you. So I'm just going to import those two files. So over here, I've got my collection and my environment file. So if I was to just drag these over into the import directory, it's identified that this is a environment file and then this is a collection file. So I'm just going to import those two. I'm just going to replace my original collection that I had here. Don't save. Okay, so we open it up, and so the collection is the online claims collection, and you can see all of the different test cases that we have here. So this is a post call. So post means I've got a data payload. So the data payload is in the body tab, and this is all of the input data that's been defined. So all of this gets sent into the address, so check address. So this is replaced via the environment variable. The environment is up here, so you can click the eyeball and it gives you the check variable, and it tells you what these will be replaced with. Okay, so this is just making it easier to do a find and replace. Each time we do a deployment, you just have to replace these values, and so when it comes to each of these test cases, it knows just to do a find and replace with check, with the environment, and then it has the updated values and it's able to hit the endpoint. Okay, so this is, let's just go through some of the tabs. Params not used. Headers are used. We use the headers for the API key storage, and the main one that you need to have is x-API-key and then the value of the API key itself. So at the moment you can see it's currently been configured to end with 3, I believe it's O, but because we've just recently deployed a new copy into the under the test branch, we'll need to update all of these environment variables. Okay, you can untick and show all of the hidden variables, but these are generally variables which relate to the client application itself. So you can see that it's referring to the Postman runtime. All right, so let's just continue. The body, as I said, it's all the input data that you're going to be posting or sending into that API endpoint. And then this, it's not being used, but this is where we've written a few test cases. Like this first test case is just to make sure that the status that comes back is 200. Then this test case just to check whether or not the response is okay. Does it actually have a body or data payload in the response back? And also, is the data payload in JSON format? And then this one is just checking to make sure that the JSON payload does have this, I guess, object reference included in the response. Okay. Now, if you wanted to extend and add more test cases to it, you can either, I guess, duplicate the test case on here. You can duplicate it here. Or if you are just simply wanting to add more, I guess, tests to the actual transaction, and you don't need to actually change the body that you're sending in, you can just simply add more lines here. Now, here's some examples on the right of different test cases that you can include in your tests. So if you were to just click one, it will just show you an example template of what you actually need to include. Okay, so we won't do that just now. Okay, so we have our collection, our online claims collection, which has about, looks like about 20 or so different test cases. And then in each of these test cases, they have different tests. So this one's testing whether or not the response time is within 1000 milliseconds. Then you've got this other test case, which is it's testing the response itself. So each of these, I guess, scenarios have different test cases included in them. Okay. Now, to continue, we needed to update the environment variable. So as I said, we've got a new branch and we deployed a new set of infrastructure for that branch. So we need to update some of these variables. So if we go over to here, we go back to CloudFormation, then we're looking at our test branch and we're looking at the infrastructure that's been deployed. We should be able to go to the outputs, should be able to just simply grab this API key. And we scroll down here, just update this API key value. Then we'll need to go and grab some of the other API endpoints. So check and acknowledge is being used. So acknowledge is this one. And then we want one for check. So that's this one. Okay. So now that those values have been updated, so both ending in 6565, got my API key. Now if we go in here, now what should happen is if you click send, it should be able to hit the API endpoint and give me back a success response, but I don't know if it's going to do that or not. Looks like it's timing out. Looks like it's timed out because probably firewall issues of some sort. Not sure if I'm going to be able to show. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to be able to show the connection going through. For whatever reason, my virtual environment doesn't have access to this endpoint. I'm going to stop it here.